Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. We are here for the unboxing of my latest book. It is an instructional art book. I'm excited about this. It's the first time I've had a art book come out in quite a while. I think it was the two pencil method was my last one, and that was at least a couple of years ago. So I am excited to unleash this upon the world. Once we get past the bubble wrap, maybe I can pop this later on. And here it is, folks. Mark Crowley's ultimate book of drawing hands. Oh, so nice to see it in print. Let's go ahead and have a look inside. All right, so here it is. Now, some of you may know that I do drawing workshops at libraries and schools, and whenever I asked students, what do you need some extra advice on, they would always say hands. And it hit me, you know what? We need to do a book that really focuses 100% on drawing hands. Because I struggle with them, frankly. Hands are really, really challenging to draw. And I noticed that the last time a new book had been published on this topic was quite some time ago. And I thought there was more to be done with it, like these sort of fantasy-style hands, for example. And so I'm going to show you as we go through my approach to doing a book that hopefully earns the right to call itself the ultimate book of drawing hands. Now, the first section in the book is devoted to the basics, showing you these very common hand poses that a lot of people will struggle with. I noticed that a lot of books about how to draw hands would have these beautiful drawings of hands, but they didn't really give you step-by-step lessons, and that's why I decided to make my book, possibly the first one ever made, that really shows you how to draw hands in a step-by-step, line-by-line way. I think those of you who struggle getting started with the fundamentals are going to appreciate having a book that has at least 30 different line-by-line, step-by-step lessons like this one. Here's a section on common hand drawing mistakes. I think part of getting a good education on something is to not only see how to do it right, but to see how sometimes people get it wrong. And so I decided to do at least a couple of pages here that focused on these errors that beginners make, or even advanced people make sometimes when they try to draw hands entirely from memory. Here's another one of these step-by-step lessons that really does try to show you, starting with super basic forms, line drawings that are doable even for the beginner, and hopefully in a gradual way getting you line by line, step by step, to a good finished result. So the next section is on hand gestures. And, when you think about it, most people who want to learn how to draw hands, they're not going to just be sitting here doing beautiful drawings of hands in isolation. It's generally part of storytelling. Let me show you one part that I think is an interesting way of focusing on the importance of hand gestures. Here at the outset, I decided to demonstrate how hand gestures can assist in comics. Like with this one, she's saying, "You said you were out with the guys," and he says, "I wasn't lying, there were guys at that party, 2 of them." And of course it's the exact same scene, but much more effective here when we add in the hand gestures. And that's just a way of launching this topic and getting you into, well, the line-by-line sort of step-by-step lessons, as always. But then also a section that really focuses on common conversational hand gestures, and me sort of suggesting what these different hand gestures convey when you use them in a conversational context. Here's a page of hand-on-chin poses, comparing different poses like that and how they sort of convey different things. Here's one on struggling hands versus lifeless hands. I really did want to try to cover every possible permutation of this topic, hopefully in a way that no previous book on this subject has gotten into. A lot of books on drawing hands get pretty heavily into the anatomy. I decided to take a kind of a different route with my book and not focus so much on the skeleton stuff, except insofar as it affects your drawing. Like this contour of the wrist is affected by a bone that's beneath the skin. I decided to point that out. Here's one that I think is sort of interesting, showing the way the fingers are divided on the underside of the finger is different from the way the knuckles are spaced out on the upper surface. the finger. So all of this stuff really for me was not so much about, you know, giving you the Latin names of all the bones and so forth, but more helping you see how the anatomy beneath the skin affects your drawing depending on the pose that your hand is in. The third section is on hand types. Now I felt a lot of books really fell down in this area of showing you lots and lots of drawings of men's hands primarily, and then sometimes women's hands, but never the hands of babies or the elderly and stuff like that. So this, I thought there was a lot of room for getting into new topics that other books had not yet covered. Here's a section on female versus male hands, pointing out the sometimes rather subtle differences that artists have to make in order to convey a woman's hand versus a man's hand. Again, not so sure there have been other books on the topic that get into this so much. As I said before, there's relatively little hardcore anatomy stuff in my book, but I did think that the back of the hand was something worth focusing on, particularly when it comes to drawing the hands of an elderly person. And I tried my best to help people understand, as an artist, what is it, you know, this incredibly complicated network of lines. I tried to break it down and show you what it is that you need to be focusing on as an artist to convey elderly hands versus those of a middle-aged or younger person. Here's a section on drawing children's hands. Again, possibly the first time this topic has been covered in a step-by-step way. Here we go all the way down to babies' hands, trying to point out what it is that makes those types of hands different from those of even just a child. I did a section on gloves. I thought, you know, why not? As an artist, sometimes you're having to draw the hand covered by a pair of gloves, and different types of gloves result in different types of drawings. Now, possibly my favorite section of the book is this one on stylized hands, where we really get to start to have some fun with this topic, showing cartoony hands, sort of superhero style hands, and so forth. I'm a big fan of comparing things to help you see just what it is that you're changing, right? So we get the hand drawn in fairly realistic style, the exact same pose converted into cartoony style. This page I thought was a really good way of showing just how different these hands can be from actual human anatomy. So as promised, there is a section on superhero hands, and even within this topic I decided to split it into male versus female, again to sort of get the emphasis of how are we changing the line work to convey these two different types of hands. So here we have a section on drawing monsters' hands, showing how artists will convert an ordinary human hand into that of like a zombie or some such creature. And not only that, but we even have a section on drawing robotic hands for like humanoid androids. And this is maybe the ultimate proof of how I was determined to come at this topic from every possible angle. And finally, we come to one of the most important sections of the book, hands in action. You know, a lot of these books on drawing hands, they only show the hands in isolation, these sort of beauty shots. They don't get into the daily nitty-gritty of like sports or playing video games and different stuff like that. I wanted to make sure that we got lessons in covering all of these different topics that artists are often called upon to include in their stories. So I'll just run through some of the featured sections, this one on high-tech items. And within this section I was trying to show different drawing styles. Like here you can see a very sort of clean line illustrator's look, but on the same page we'll see a little more of a sketchy pencil type of an approach. There's a section on cooking and eating. A spread here that's all about holding swords, daggers, sort of daily tasks like turning a key or turning a doorknob. And finally, a spread on poses that involve not just one hand, but two. Yeah, I particularly enjoyed this, and there is a step-by-step lesson that goes along with this section as well, showing people holding hands. So there you go, friends, my ultimate book of drawing hands. Many thanks to any of you who decide to order it. I'll put a little link in the description of this video. Believe me, I know what it's like to struggle with this topic, and indeed that's why I decided to make a book to help myself and to help you unlock some of the secrets of drawing hands well. But I do think it is time for me to wind this video down. I want to thank you all for watching it. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back with another one real soon.